Hello, everyone. My name is Braden. This is Airless Pool 9. And this video, we're going to take a look at what Wizards of the Coast has to say about dragons in the 2024 Monster Manual. So let's give it a listen to and see what information they're wanting to give us.
What would Dungeons and Dragons be without dragons? We have some pretty significant changes that are really exciting, but also we're talking about the lore of dragons. Tell me about what has changed, what is new.
Dragons were the focus of our work for the new Monster Manual from the beginning. We not only wanted to make sure that their art was thrilling, we wanted the storytelling about them to be on point for their wonderful legacy in D&D, but we also especially wanted the gameplay to be ferocious, majestic, terrifying, and all of the other adjectives
that blue dragon art is really cool.
Associate with dragons. We really wanted to make sure that our dragons this time around, especially at the higher challenge ratings, were really bringing the hurt. And we knew that at lower CRs, our dragons were already bringing plenty of suffering for those who fought them, as well as plenty of encouragement for those who allied with them. Since, for those who don't know, a big part of D&D is we have the chromatic dragons, who are traditionally villainous, greedy, out to rule the world or destroy parts of it, or
I'm very interested to see all this new dragon artwork because there's been a lot of redesigns regarding dragons.
Lurk around and cause trouble. And then you have the metallic dragons, whose role in the D&D multiverse has
the gold dragon
been to encourage and bolster heroic folk who go up against the forces of evil. Now, that doesn't mean you can't fight a metallic dragon, because even a well-meaning dragon sometimes has a really bad day or a bad century, because dragons live a long time, and you might even find yourself in a scuffle with a metallic dragon. Whatever kind of dragon it is, chromatic or metallic, or some of the other types of dragons that also appear in the book, we wanted to make sure that as you
Shadow Dragon
in the challenge ratings, those dragons really became harder and harder. We did that not only by taking a fresh look at the dragons' hit points, the amount of damage they were dealing, but in many ways, more importantly, we looked at what are they capable of doing mechanically. So you're going to see, particularly in many of the adult and ancient dragons, that they now have spellcasting incorporated into their stat blocks. Spellcasting has always been a part of the lore of chromatic and metallic dragons, particularly as those dragons get older.
They talked about this a little bit in the video that they released on Tuesday, just regarding everything that you need to know about the 2024 Monster Manual. So, yeah, we do know that spellcasting has been incorporated into almost every dragon. I think White Dragon may be the only exception, and that's just because of their nature and their mentality. They're a lot more focused on getting into the nitty-gritty. Though White Dragon may have some spellcasting that we don't know about, but they did mention that it for certain doesn't have as much as these other dragons. So let's get back to it.
And in the 2014 Monster Manual was an option, but this time we wanted to make it much easier for a dungeon master to terrify their player characters by having that dragon not just exhale its breath weapon and then spend several rounds batting you around with its bite and its claws.
Right.
But oh no, did it just cast fireball at us?
Yeah.
Or in the case of the black dragon, did it just cast vitriolic sphere?
Yeah.
Which is one of the new spells in the 2024 Player's Handbook. A number of those spells are in that book, by the way, so that we could enhance dragons in the Monster Manual. We've talked before that one of the advantages of building the 3 new core books as essentially one giant book is that we could add things in one book that were going to help one of the other 2 books.
That's definitely going to make these books feel a lot more cohesive, because for those who have read the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide, they do feel a lot more cohesive and work together a lot more tightly than the previous versions for 5th edition did. So yeah, very excited to see how that has affected this monster manual.
And some of our spell selections did exactly that. You can also see our black dragons are going to be able to cast Melf's Acid Arrow.
That's nice.
But we went even further. We looked at a number of the lair actions that our dragons had before and took the spiciest ones and moved them into the stat blocks themselves.
Right.
In most cases, we turned them into some really fun legendary actions. The 2014...
Okay, so he did say legendary actions. So when we got a preview of the Ancient Green Dragon, that version of the stat block had reactions. So I wonder if they went back to legendary actions for dragons. I would appreciate it if they did, though I did like the flavor of those reactions. I do like legendary actions more. So let's hear if they say anything else on that.
Teen dragons, their legendary actions often amounted to, they did some more swatting you with their claw or biting you.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was about it. Now, you're going to see things like the black dragon summoning a swarm of insects that bedevil you.
Cool.
Or you're going to see the blue dragon, once it gets old enough that it has legendary actions, causing a sonic boom that casts the shatter spell on a group of people, or suddenly going into
cool.
cloaked flight where it just goes invisible and
That's
flies a
also
certain
cool.
distance. Every single one of these dragon types has some new shtick like that is specific to that particular dragon's personality.
Yeah, it's all on theme.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Another example going on the metallic dragon side is because metallic dragons, yes, can be ferocious in battle, but often want to stop battle. So one of the new legendary actions for gold dragons is they just banish you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So if you get into battle with a gold dragon, be prepared. There might be someone each round who there is a chance
cool.
of like they just were sent somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because the gold dragon just does not want to deal with them right now. And what this means is that even people who've been playing 5th edition for the last 10 years, when they go up against dragons, they are going to be encountering one new thing after another.
That's good.
Particularly when they get to the adults and the ancient dragons.
That's kind of what I think a lot of us want, though. We want dragons to be cooler than they are, because the 2014 Monster Manual versions of dragons, they're really lackluster. There's not a lot going on in the stat blocks. They're very boring, for lack of a better word. So seeing that these dragons are going to have a lot more options available to them and be able to do more cool things is really exciting to hear about. I mean, we do know for a fact that they're still going to have their melee attacks and their breath weapon, and they're going to be doing that sort of stuff. But it's nice to hear that dragons are going to get some extra tools so that they feel like more of a threat and can do more things that will surprise players. So I'm really excited to hear all that.
Now, we also have brought new mechanical fun.
Oh, dragon turtles.
The dragon turtle, to the wyvern, to kobolds, who now are officially dragons.
Oh, nice.
So kobolds have had their creature type changed to dragons. So that's good to hear. That makes a lot of sense.
And that isn't just a flavor adjustment that we've made, but it has mechanical consequences, because it means like Charm Person doesn't work on kobolds anymore. And we wanted to do this both from a lore standpoint, but also from a mechanical standpoint, so that we could really highlight more what distinguishes, say, a kobold from a goblin, or a goblin from a kenku, or, you know, right on down the line. And we've talked in another video about there are a number of creature type changes in the book, and that affects even the dragon family, since the most humanoid-like dragons in the monster manual, kobolds, are now literally of the dragon type.
And then that we also have in there, we've got...
That's good, because it also just makes more narrative sense. Because, I mean, in a lot of previous adventures and content, some kobolds have had the motivation of becoming dragons. So if they're already the dragon type, it's not that far outside of that reality for them to be able to undergo some sort of ritual or what have you to become a full-fledged dragon. So that makes that possibility seem more in their favor than it was before, and I kind of like that particular change, because it really fits the narrative that I have in my head about kobolds, is that kobolds revere dragons and they want to become dragons at some point. So if they already are the dragon type, there's really only one further step for them to become. That's to become true dragons. So that's nice to hear.
Shadow dragons, we've got half dragons and lore about them.
When you look...
Yeah, and the half dragons are really cool. I did do a video because Pack Tactics talked about and showcased the half dragon stat block, because Wizards of the Coast was nice enough to give it to him. So I do showcase that in a video that I will have coming out on Monday. So keep an eye out for that, as well as some other stat blocks.
Look at the stats for half dragons and also for the shadow dragon, people are going to see brand new stat blocks. So something that we decided to do this time for the half dragon is really develop it as a complete monster. In 2014, we gave you a...
And I really appreciate that they've taken that approach, because templates were kind of boring. And because you had to apply a template to an existing stat block, there was never a stat block in front of you to use unless you designed it yourself based off of the template that they gave you. So it's nice that they took the approach of just making it a stat block that you use, and I really appreciate that change.
Stat block, but it was really a collection of templated traits collected into a stat block. This time around, the half dragon is a monster in its own right. Same thing with the shadow dragon, where we have fleshed
so that
it
is
out
the shadow dragon,
into a full type of dragon with its own new type of breath weapon, and we now have two types of shadow dragons. We have a juvenile shadow dragon and an older one. Because frankly, we just think having this Shadowfell dragon is so cool. We wanted more of it, and we wanted you to be able to experience it at more levels. And so,
yeah, I appreciate that they now have at least two stat blocks now, so that there is a lower CR version and a higher CR version. Only makes sense for them to do that.
That's why we now have two types of shadow dragons in the new monster manual.
Also, like, fantastic art and multiple cases of art for each of these dragons, which is exciting. I love the different ways we represent the green dragon. Obviously, the black dragon's fantastic, seeing that melted face. But specifically, the context of things is great for me as a dungeon master, because when I'm reading about, this is how they act as a youngling. This is how they act as an adult. This is how they act as an ancient. Like, this is where they kind of are at in their lives and how they interact with their environments. And each dragon is different.
Absolutely.
That's nice that they have that information, though. That's what dungeon masters want and need, so that they can define how these creatures act and make them feel more alive. So I like that they're giving us that type of information so that we as dungeon masters can better roleplay dragons.
And it's going to be something that you're going to hear us mention again and again while we're talking about these monsters, is that the art is just as much about the narrative and the story and the play experience of these creatures as any other part of the book. When you look at the different pieces of art throughout the 2025 Monster Manual, you're going to see this is how it lives, this is the layers it's in, this is how it behaves, helping to give DMs suggestions for here's how I can use this critter. Perfect example is one that you just mentioned there with the green dragon. Green dragons are known for being sinister and sneaky and ambushers and like camouflaging themselves. So when you see the adult green dragon, instead of having this in your face coming at you like slicing through adventurers, the depiction of the green dragon is it snaking its way through this swampy pool where there's adventurers who are completely unaware of it,
Yeah,
boating
that's
above
nice.
it, not cognizant that they're about to get ambushed by this green dragon. You see this at all age categories as well, because continuing the example with the green dragon, there's a green dragon wyrmling there. You get the sense there that it's this
Oh, the wormling art.
sneaky, sinuous, sinister little menace. And I'm saying little, but like so often we think of wyrmlings as being like, oh, maybe it's just these little guys. No, wyrmlings are the same size as you and I are.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's what really comes through on this.
Yes. And then even with the ancient dragons, for each one of the metallic dragons and the chromatic dragons, you get this gorgeous full page image that shows some of the most powerful
Nice.
monsters in Dungeons and Dragons in their full splendor or dread, doing the thing that makes them so iconic, whether it's a red dragon terrifying like a small legion of knights, or a gold dragon just being awesome, or like in the example of the green dragon, this deep in the woodlands, like sinister magical mastermind who you can see is like manipulating forces off in the distance.
I do want to say I really like the approach that they've taken to the artwork in this book, because from what I've heard and what I've seen, a lot of these new artwork pieces are these monsters in the act of doing certain things. They're always performing some type of action or doing something, so we really get to see what's going on and what things they like to do. We get to see these creatures in action, so there's more of an identity for them. And I was really confused here about what was going on here on this artwork, but I think this is another claw of this wing. So I was trying to figure out what that was on its face, but now it makes perfect sense now that I'm looking at it. But yeah, even you can see here just this green dragon. It's weaving illusions in front of it to perform some design. So yeah, the artwork really speaks to the personality of these monsters, and I really appreciate how that's coming through.
I might be getting this wrong, but it's either the green or the blue dragon. But like, one of the dragons as an example of a wyrmling is actually, it may actually be not subservient, but like working with other villains to learn from them.
Yes.
As a wyrmling. That kind of context was really fun to read.
We want to make sure that each one of the different types of dragons feels like there's specific adventures associated with each one of them. It's not just this is a green dragon and this is what a green dragon does. A green dragon wyrmling, a young green dragon, an adult green dragon, an ancient green dragon, they all have their own agendas. They all have their own plots, which at the lowest CRs and with the youngest of them, might be more territorial or it part of a small area. But as they get stronger, as they advance, it's more regional, it's more global, and then potentially even more multiversal.
And that's something that does come up with ancient, like
I like
several of the
that.
ancient dragons. Is some of them have a multiversal approach.
Yes.
So some of them, like the white dragon, just wants its territory, and that's kind of it. The red dragon thinks it's the best dragon and best monster in the entire universe, and that's its agenda. Blue dragon also has like interplanar plans at some point, but that goes for the metallic dragons as well. And that's why I really love about this is you're kind of giving us a character.
Yes.
At every stage of their life and what they and again, like you mentioned, the wormlings are not just wormlings, because so often I'm dating myself, but Dragon Slayer, I think of wormlings and they're these puppets that meet a very grisly end and don't have any personality. But these are like very intelligent creatures that already are working into this environment that you can interact with.
And it was important to us not only in the game mechanics, but also in the art to drive home that wormlings are
That's
dangerous.
cool. All this
I think
artwork is
sometimes
fantastic.
in the past, when we've depicted wormlings, they've been sometimes kind of cute. And we actually made sure, especially with the chromatics this time, most of them are not cute, because these are things that low-level adventurers are going to face off against. And
I mean,
again,
that's
these are
kinda
not
cute.
like cute little creatures.
But
This
it's
is
also
a
kind of menacing.
person-sized
This is a threat.
lizard with wings that can exhale fire on you.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
This crocodile has wings and is smarter than you.
Yes, exactly. And as you were talking, one of the things that was really kind of warming my heart is that at what you were describing, Wes, about the personality of like a green dragon, and Todd, also you mentioning the insidious nature of what they do. That's in the game mechanics, and much more so than a decade ago, because now, especially adult and ancient green dragons, they have the Mind Spike spell. And
nice. That's a good spell.
They also are able to, when they get to higher level, cast Modify Memory and Gesh to actually cause you to have to do something for a long period of time. And this means that, for those of us who love like Cyan from the Dragonlance Chronicles, we wanted to make sure that that sort of storytelling was represented in the stat blocks themselves. And you're going to see that in the green dragons, the blue dragons, the bronze dragons, and all down the line.
And again, like we talk about personality, and not everyone knows all the personalities, and we don't need to go really deep into it, but historically, like red dragons, like I mentioned before, they really think they're the best of dragon kind. They extremely territorial. They like the gold. They are very quick to anger. Smaug being a very classic example of like the personality of a red dragon. I would argue, like they're always a threat, always dangerous.
Yes, these are the real like megalomaniacs. It's like they want to control, and what they can't control, they destroy.
How would you define the personality of a blue dragon?
Oh, I mean, blue dragons are my favorite. So I mean, they're the lawful evil ones. They're the ones where they want to control everything, but they will do it by manipulating others, by taking over regions, by
I like that
forming
art.
armies. I mean, they're sort of the ultimate lawful evil villains, where it's just like, I want to control and dominate everything, and if I can't do it through my organizations and spreading my power, then I'll just use my incredible like power and magical might to do
all the way
so.
to like multiversal empires.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And you can, a lot of those personality traits are echoed in these sort of environmental associations that the dragons have and their abilities. So the blue dragons, with their far-spanning plots, well, that connects to the fact that blue dragons are associated with being the highest up in the sky, and the ones who call lightning down from the sky. They are the ones way above watching, whereas red dragons are associated often.
I want to go back. That art was really interesting. You can see here in the corner that the blue dragon has called down lightning, which has rendered the silver dragon's wing. That's really cool. I really like the flavor that they're going for here. Now, this blue dragon art is really cool. I like this a lot.
The sky. They are the ones way above watching, whereas red dragons are associated often with environmental destruction, like volcanoes and eruptions of lava.
They are that force of nature.
Yes.
Exactly. And we also, another example of us connecting personality of the different dragon types to the mechanics is what we've done in the different dragons with their frightful presence ability. In 2014, the dragons consistently had this frightful presence ability, but this time we wanted to explore more tailored versions of that or entirely different effects in the dragons. So, there are still some dragons that do strike fear into people, but thinking of the red dragon is the most tyrannical of the chromatic dragons. And so rather than having the red dragon strike fear into people, we instead have the red dragon with a commanding presence where the red dragon can actually growl out a command, a magical command, and get people to do things. And that will also help make encounters with these different types of dragons very different from each other.
That's
because
good.
Again, one dragon might be, growling commands at people. Another one is terrifying people. Another one is banishing people. They all have some way to control the battlefield that goes beyond just dealing damage. And again, it was a lot of fun for us to go beyond just striking fear into people.
Yeah, everything feels way tailor-made, way more tailor-made now. And it's gonna be great to see players who are perhaps used to the old versions of dragons be a little bit surprised, which is always my favorite thing. They're like, oh, I don't remember doing that. I'm like, well, welcome to 2024, 2025.
Yeah, well, because one example of that, and I touched on this earlier about spell casting in many of the adult and ancient dragons. That's going to create situations where you might have people who were used to fighting the dragons before, and they know, okay, watch out for the breath weapon, and okay, the dragon used its breath weapon. It's now recharging, and it just has melee attacks. If we just stand hundreds of feet away and shoot at it, we're fine. Oh no, that dragon just snapped its fingers and there was an explosion all around us. So we also had that in mind, is we wanted the dragons to have, especially the adult and ancient ones, more tactical versatility. And so it is going to be also more difficult now to outfox a dragon because the dragons in their stat blocks have more tools now for dealing with different tactical situations. They're now going to be able to fight you if you're way, way over there or if you're up close. And so again, watch out, be prepared and beware of fighting them in their layers, because the other thing that's new for all of these metallic and chromatic dragons is they get to use legendary resistance more often if they're in their lair, and they get to use their legendary actions more often if they're in their lair.
That's also nice.
And so that too is going to make lair encounters with many of these dragons even more terrifying than they were before.
And more of a reason to get them out of their lairs.
Yes, yes. Try to trick the dragon to fight you somewhere other than its lair.
At another locale.
Yeah.
That's nice though, that fighting a dragon in its lair is going to be more difficult, because that makes a lot of narrative sense, because they are in their element and they're stronger because they are in their playing field. So I really like that aspect of that design. And it's nice that these new dragons are going to have other options. So yeah, even if they don't have their breath weapon currently, they still have other things that they can do to make sure that the players are constantly under fire. And I really like that they have taken all of that into consideration. I'm very excited to see more of what these dragons can do.
I feel like all the dragons are leaning more into their personality. Like the black dragon is a good example. Again, you mentioned like they are more about death and decay, destroying like the stonework around them or ancient buildings, melting them down with their acid over time. But then undead are more and more attracted to their presence as well, and they kind of gain a following.
Absolutely.
Very, very creepy creatures, and that's all on theme for the black dragon.
Well, you'll even see this in some of the redesigns that we've done of the various dragons. The art team has put a ton of effort into making sure that the 2025 versions of these dragons really are distinctive, but also get these moods across. So even when you look at the black dragon, it's cadaverous. It's got these spines to it. The entire thing has this unsettling sort of necromantic vibe to it. And as soon as you put it into its natural environment, these swamps, the idea that it would be followed by like the dead crawling out of these ruins that it lurks in, it seems perfectly natural. And you see that for every one of the chromatics and the metallics. We've really put a lot of effort into making sure that each one of these different types of dragons, at a glance, it looks distinctive, but then also feels natural in the environments that they are commonly found in, but then also that they look like they would be doing the things that they're most commonly known for.
I really like the comments about the gold dragon in the description of like they are almost undercover but looking for evil, even though they are somewhat solitary and like often live in like dead civilizations sometimes or amongst structures like that. They are on the outlook. They may be polymorphed in humanoid form, looking for adventure or at least to right some wrong.
Well, I think something that ends up being a challenge for a lot of DMs is I've got these 5 incredible, powerful dragons, but they're all good alignment. What do I do with them?
Yeah.
So, like for every one of these different dragons, for every one of these different metallic dragons, we want to give you examples and plot hooks and ideas for these are what these dragons might do. This is how they might be allies to you. This is how they might work in a larger society with some of the narrative notes. This is how you might come into conflict with some of them. Perfect example is the gold dragon, because even that one, while the ancient gold dragon is really depicted as this like incredible force, but like sort of like powerful but serene, and the young version is sort of more elusive looking or more wily looking. You've got the picture of the adult one where it's clearly guarding like some sort of like portal or gate or something. Just because you might want to go through that gate doesn't mean the gold dragon, who has been guarding this for centuries, wants you to. So there's a lot of ways to help DMs build adventures using these metallic dragons as well.
And we've gone into the personality of, I believe, all the evil dragons. I don't think we missed one.
Maybe the white.
Yeah, well, we mentioned they are they're just sort of the beastly ones.
Yes, they are the most primordial of the dragons.
That's one of the reasons that I love like the art for them as well, though, because even them,
they look like a bull.
They look like they look so bestial, like they are attacking like a predator does, and that's again, like Jeremy has said, is built into like all of their stats, their lore. The art supports that so well.
What can you tell me the personality of a copper dragon and what copper dragons tend to be about?
So the copper dragons are more about building community, and these are one of the dragons that I'm so pleased with how they ended up looking in the final product, because you can see that they're more about
they have a whimsical nature about them,
building relationships, putting together networks. And something that you'll see with the ancient copper dragon is that you can see that they've invited a whole bunch of other dragon wormlings into their lairs, and they've got this great collection of little guys that they're watching out for.
And see, that's what I mean by hooks. Like you mentioned, like these hooks are so great for you to involve good aligned. It's so easy to kind of involve evil aligned dragons, or chromatic dragons, but like for the metallic dragons, these are great hooks.
I think Jeremy's often referred to the copper dragons as the fairy tale dragons.
Yes, yeah, and we show that visually with them with all the little baby dragons around them, but we also work that into their stat blocks. So the adult and ancient copper dragons, one of their new legendary actions is their giggling magic, where they can mess with people on the battlefield by just causing them to stand there giggling.
That's right.
And
that's cool.
Also, something else we've done in the stat blocks for all of the metallic dragons is we've given them more flexibility in using their 2 breath weapons. In the past, all of the metallics, and this goes all the way back to first edition D&D, they had 2 different ways they could use their breath weapon. There was usually a damaging version and a non-damaging version. What we've done for the first time is we've made it so that those 2 different breath weapon types are no longer on a shared recharge. And so what that means is that the metallic dragons can actually be exhaling things more often than chromatic dragons can, but their damaging breath weapons are still as limited as they were before, but they're going to get to use some of their non-damaging options more often than they could before.
But they're just as balanced.
Yes.
Between the 2 different dragon types.
And it was quite a feat to actually get the metallic dragons to be balanced, because their combination of abilities is actually much more complex mechanically than the chromatic dragons, because the chromatic dragons just bring tremendous hurt, whereas the metallic dragons all have a much bigger mix of damaging and non-damaging options. And so we had to weave the needle very carefully to make sure that the metallic dragons would all still be a satisfying encounter no matter which combo of damaging or non-damaging abilities they decide to use.
What are some of the personality traits of, say, a bronze dragon? What are they like attracted to?
So the bronze dragons are more about imagination.
Okay, I really like what they're saying so far. That's crazy that metallic dragons essentially, I know that they've always had 2 breath weapons, but they're always on the same recharge. So having 2 separate recharges, one sec. I just killed a fly. Having 2 separate recharges for what is a damaging breath weapon and a conditioning breath weapon is really interesting. It's cool that they have that versatility now that they didn't have before. Wow, that's really interesting to hear. I'm really interested to see how they've handled that in these stat blocks. Now that they can do both of those things, that means it is very likely that the metallic dragons are going to have a breath weapon available to them. So that's really cool to see. I'm really interested to see how that functions in their stat blocks. But yeah, these I really like what they're saying about these redesigns. Everything that they're saying about these dragons is pulling through in the artwork. It's very clear like what kinds of personalities these dragons have based on what they're saying and then what the artwork is saying. So it makes a lot of sense to me. I'm glad that that is succeeding what they are trying to convey.
But also protection. They're often associated with coastal environments, and this is something that, again, you end up seeing right from the art, where we start illustrating they're protecting communities, they're like saving people, they're fending off monsters. There's a completely wahoo piece of an adult that's fighting like a megalodon.
That does remind me about the dragon turtle,
That's
because
cool.
I believe not totally the other dragon, the previous dragon, not totally on board with piracy, But the dragon turtle specifically mentions that it may be totally down for some piracy or be friends with pirates.
Absolutely.
So I like the sense that there may be some dragon friction happening in the ocean in terms of what piracy is. And that art for the dragon turtle is absolutely amazing as well.
Oh, yeah. Just using its breath over like an entire ship.
Yeah, yeah.
That piece of art is a great example of what we've done for a number of the gargantuan monsters in the book, and that is showing that gargantuan, when it comes to a creature size, doesn't really have a ceiling, because the other size categories have a fixed space that creatures of that size occupy. That isn't true for gargantuan. Gargantuan has a floor for how big it is, a minimum size for the creature, a minimum space that it occupies, but there's no maximum for how big a gargantuan creature can be, and so you definitely get a glimpse of that with that dragon turtle piece of art, because it is massive, the way it looms over that ship.
And very quick.
It's very nice that they are conveying that, because we've always known that gargantuan is the largest creature type, and that 20 by 20 squares was the floor for it. But myself, and I'm sure a lot of other DMs, we never really consider how large gargantuan can be. So showing how vast these gargantuan creatures can be is really nice to portray in this artwork, because more likely than not now, when we are running a gargantuan creature, this is going to be a massive force to be reckoned with. So it's nice to see that being portrayed here.
Quickly, we've got, what are the personality types and kind of traits of a brass dragon?
So the brass dragons are desert-dwelling dragons, and they often end up sharing stories, but then also investigating. You'll end up seeing them like plumbing these ancient ruins, looking for tales. And again, this is something that we see in the art with like a brass dragon that's clearing out like a ruin full of mummies, but then also you've got the ancient who is clearly protecting a whole group of adventurers from like a desert sandstorm.
And then we've got the silver dragon, which is, again, one of those interplanar dragons. Once it's ancient, it may be involved in a lot of different shenanigans at a much higher level. Tell me about silver dragons.
So silver dragons in a lot of ways are sort of like the knights in shining armor of dragon kind. Like they get a little bit more martial, but they're also the ones that are out there questing against evil. So they'll be out there seeking challenges even from a young age, and sometimes maybe getting in over their heads, and that's where they might need adventurers to help them out.
Yeah, you specifically mentioned that in the book too.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
So then, as they get into their adult and ancient ages, they start taking on more and more powerful threats that might even lead them beyond a world into the plains.
And what are their breath weapons again?
So the silver dragon has its traditional cold breath as well as its paralyzing breath.
Right.
And then with its new legendary actions, one of them, it can just chill someone in place with the hold monster spell. And then it also has a cold gale where it can cause this just blast of wind with one of its other new legendary actions. And so that's going to be bringing essentially this combination of like a snowstorm, but then also going, nope. The silver dragon, sort of like the red dragon, has this commanding presence where, again, it can just like, no. You're going to just stand there for a moment.
And like you mentioned, the silver dragons getting over their head, there's like that sense of a little bit of arrogance, of a little overconfidence in their lives, and you can see where they're going into adulthood.
Yeah, and they're going to bring you along for their adventures, whether you want to come or not.
That's already I want a silver dragon to enlist you on an adventure and them to screw up. which seems like a distinct possibility.
But also you could find yourself on the opposite end of a quest from a solar dragon.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that the story text throughout for the metallic dragons alludes to is that these dragons might be good and they might be working for good in the world, but their goals are not always going to align with yours, and you could end up in a fight with them. And that's one reason why we work so hard to make fighting them even more interesting than it has been in the past.
Thank you so much, Wes and Jeremy. I know everyone likes to talk about
Yeah.
dragons, but I will have to let you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
All right. So yeah, lots of lots of really interesting stuff that I heard from them in this video. It sounds like they've really taken a lot of thought about dragons and how they're going to function, and making sure that they have new and interesting options available to them now, so that they're not these bland creatures anymore. There's variety to them, and they can do cool and interesting things, and they're going to be able to keep players on their toes. So yeah, a lot of interesting info here. I'm very happy with what I heard, and I can't wait to see any of these dragon stat blocks. I'm really interested to see how these function mechanically now. So yeah, really interesting info. I like it a lot. I'm gonna get
So much for watching this video. We will have a ton more videos all about the different monsters in the new monster manual. You can purchase the brand new monster.
okay, just wanted to get off of that. So yeah, yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. I'm very excited for this book. There's a lot going on here. Cool stuff regarding dragons. I can't wait to see what else they're going to talk about here in the next few weeks. It's really fun talking about monsters because they're such a core part of Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, very excited for this monster manual coming out in the next month. So yes, thank you all for watching this video. I greatly appreciate your support. I'm working on getting this channel up to 500 subscribers. So press that like button, subscribe if you haven't done so, and I will catch you all in the next video. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day. See you later.